Peter Dutton will reportedly ask Australians to decide on the deportation of people on visas convicted of anti-Semitic crimes at a referendum, if potential laws were overturned by the High Court. Joining us now is Executive Council of Australian Jewry co-CEO Alex Ryvchin. Alex, good to see you as always. Thanks for joining the show. Look, I'm not sure how Australians would feel about the prospect of another referendum, but is this a good move in your view?
Well, look, I think that when we talk about visa holders, whether it be someone in Australia on a tourist visa or a holiday maker or a working visa, no one has the right to come to Australia. It's a privilege. And I can tell you as someone who came here stateless as a refugee, it's the highest privilege. And if while in Australia on a visa, if they embark in behaviour that undermines our social fabric, denigrates a segment of our society, incites violence, hatred, and so forth, supports terrorist organisations, I think their status should be revoked. I mean, once they become a citizen of this country, they're our problem for better or for worse. But as long as they're a visa holder, I think they're given a right which comes with responsibilities, and that right and those privileges can be withdrawn.
I want to ask you about the caravan terror plot that turned out to be a hoax. Police are saying Syed Iran Akkar is the alleged fugitive behind the terror caravan plot and a string of arson and graffiti attacks on Jewish targets. Now, you've criticised police and politicians for using this information to then be dismissive of anti-Semitism, particularly as a motivating factor. Just talk me through how you see the developments in this case.
Well, when this revelation came out that the spate of fire bombings we saw in Sydney, as well as the caravan incident, were part of a masterminded plot to somehow benefit this person in his own criminal troubles. The police and the authorities and the government were very quick to rule out anti-Semitism as a motive. And they were very quick to call it a con job or a hoax to really diminish the severity of what happened. And predictably, that sparked the whole spate of conversations online, allegations that there is no anti-Semitism, that it's all concocted, that it's all imagined by the Jewish community. Some even claimed worse, that it's an inside job. And in my view, it was so reckless of the police to make that statement, particularly the statement that anti-Semitism wasn't a motive. When you had specific Jewish targets, including people's homes, Jewish neighborhoods, synagogues, childcare centers, specific Jewish targets targeted in this way, it was apparent that anti-Semitism was clearly somewhere in the minds of the people who orchestrated this. And lo and behold, when the mastermind is revealed, he turns out to be someone who holds very conventional but very extreme anti-Semitic views. He's an adorer of Hitler. He's a 9/11 conspiracy theorist. He's an anti-Zionist. He's a common anti-Semite. And so our view was that it was premature and reckless and irresponsible to rule out anti-Semitism. And I think that that's diverted the conversation from what's happening in our country, which is a crisis of anti-Semitism, which begs solutions. And it's allowed people to pursue their own agenda, to score points against their political foes and so forth.
Police saying that they're allegations at the moment, but no doubt they'll have more information for us hopefully soon. Now, Alex, the New South Wales Premier Chris Minns has defended rushing racial hatred laws through state parliament after a series, as we just mentioned, of those anti-Semitic attacks in Sydney. Alex, I guess, we understand that the Jewish community needs protecting. There's been some concern about the impact of this legislation, even more so now, though, that it's been rushed. In light of the fact that this caravan threat has been exposed as a hoax, did the laws need to be pushed through so fast?
Well, look, firstly, I don't think we should characterise it as a hoax. You did have a caravan packed with explosives. There was no intention, as it turned out, to detonate it. But I think labelling it as a hoax, I think, diminishes the gravity of the situation. The fact that you have this criminal enterprise that procured such a vast amount of explosives and also carried out the fire bombings as we saw. But the laws to protect communities, not just the Jewish community, but broader society, weren't triggered solely by this one incident. They have a long gestational period. We've had thousands of anti-Semitic incidents in the past 18 months. And if you go back to cases like Sheikh al-Wawa, who evaded prosecution despite calling for the death of Jews, for Jews to be found and murdered, I think it showed for a long time we've had a problem in our society where there's a community expectation that people that espouse such radical, hateful views to incite violence against segments of our society should be prosecuted. They should be within the realm of criminal prosecution, but they aren't. So I think the laws made sense for a long time, and I think regardless of what happened with the caravan and the subsequent firebombings, they still make eminent sense. Views will differ, and I think there's a libertarian position that opposes any laws which stifle any form of speech, even hateful or extreme speech. But I think some of the actors that have now popped up and claimed that the law should be repealed, including the Greens and the Civil Liberties Union, I think they're acting out of an ideological position and really a lack of concern for anti-Semitism. I think that's the real driving agenda in this case.
Alex, just before we let you go, you spoke very powerfully at the Anti-Semitism Summit hosted by Sky News, and you presented a plan to end anti-Semitism in this country. I was just keen to find out what feedback have you had, particularly from political leaders, in response to your suggestions. How's that been received?
Well, firstly, thank you, James, and I have to commend Danica for her role in that summit as well on Sky News. It was really phenomenal achievement from all concerned. Peter Dutton, on the back of the presentation of the 15-point plan of action to defeat anti-Semitism in Australia, wrote to my organisation saying that his government will adopt it in full, which was a very welcome position from the opposition, and we thank them for it. We're still awaiting the response of the government. So when that comes back, we can analyse what their position is, and we can see if the fight against anti-Semitism has a consensus position, whether it's above partisanship, or whether there's a clear policy divide between the two major parties going into the election.
Yeah, look, it'll be interesting to see. Alex Ryvchin, it's always really great to catch up with you. Thank you so much for joining us on the show this evening. Appreciate it.